The telegram arrived on the coldest morning of January 1878, informing Lydia Brooks that her husband had been found dead in a Denver saloon with another woman's lipstick, staining his collar and a bullet hole through his treacherous heart. Lydia stood in the cramped telegraph office in Aurora, Colorado, staring at the words until they blurred into meaningless shapes. She felt nothing. Not grief, not shock, not even relief. Just a vast emptiness that seemed to stretch as far as the snow-covered plains beyond the town. 3 years of marriage to Robert Brooks had taught her that love was a fairy tale told to foolish girls, and she had been the most foolish of all. She had believed his promises, his declarations, his gentle touches in the beginning. She had ignored the whispers about his wandering eye, the nights he came home smelling of cheap perfume, the money that disappeared from their savings. Now he was gone, and she felt as hollow as the abandoned mine shafts that dotted the mountainside. "Mrs. Brooks?" The telegraph operator, a thin man with worried eyes, reached across the counter. "Are you all right? Should I fetch someone?" "No." Her voice came out steady, cold. "Thank you for the message." She walked out into the bitter wind, pulling her worn shawl tight around her shoulders. Aurora was a small town, barely more than a collection of wooden buildings clustered along a single main street, but it had been her refuge for the past 6 months. When Robert's business ventures had failed in Denver, they had moved here with nothing but debts and broken promises. Then he had abandoned her, returning to Denver alone while she stayed behind to work as a seamstress, barely earning enough to pay for her tiny room above the general store. Now she was a widow at 24, and she felt ancient. The general store was quiet when she climbed the narrow stairs to her room. She sat on the edge of her bed, still wearing her coat, and looked at the 4 walls that contained her entire life. A narrow bed, a washstand, a trunk with her few possessions, and a sewing table crowded with fabric scraps and thread. This was what remained after believing in love. "Never again," she whispered to the empty room. The words felt like a vow, cold and permanent as the ice forming on her window. The next weeks passed in a blur of gray days and colder nights. The town held a small funeral service, though there was no body to bury. Lydia stood beside an empty grave and listened to the preacher speak meaningless words about a man he had never known. A handful of townspeople attended out of courtesy, their faces filled with pity that made her stomach churn. She did not want their sympathy. She wanted nothing at all. "You should eat something." Martha Henley, the storekeeper's wife, appeared at Lydia's door 3 days after the funeral with a basket of bread and stew. "You're wasting away." "I am fine." Lydia accepted the basket mechanically. "Thank you." "Are you?" Martha's round face creased with concern. "You have not left your room except to fetch water. This is not healthy, dear." "I have work to do." Lydia gestured at the pile of mending waiting on her table. "Mrs. Patterson needs her dress finished by Sunday." "Work can wait. You need to live." Martha placed a gentle hand on Lydia's arm. "I know you are hurting." "I am not hurting." The words came out sharper than intended. "I'm simply tired. Please, I need to finish this work." Martha left reluctantly, and Lydia returned to her sewing with mechanical precision, stitch after stitch, day after day, letting the repetitive motion numb her mind. She spoke to no one unless necessary. She smiled at no one. She felt nothing, and that was exactly what she wanted. February came with heavier snows that blocked the mountain passes and isolated Aurora from the larger towns. Supplies grew scarce, and tensions rose as the cold deepened. Lydia barely noticed. She sewed, she slept, she existed. That was enough. Then Victor Kane arrived. Lydia first heard about him from the excited chatter in the store below her room. A mountain man had come down from his cabin in the high country, bringing furs to trade and warning about a particularly harsh winter ahead. The women in the store gossiped about his size, his weather-worn face, his long, dark hair, and the muscles that strained against his heavy coat. "He looks like he could wrestle a bear," Mrs. Patterson said with a nervous giggle. "I heard he lives alone up in those mountains," another woman added. "No wife, no family. What kind of man chooses that?" "A dangerous one," Mrs. Patterson replied in a hushed tone. "Stay away from him, I say." Lydia paid no attention to the gossip. Mountain men came through Aurora occasionally, rough and wild men who preferred solitude to society. They traded their furs, bought supplies, and disappeared back into the wilderness. She had no interest in any of them, but fate had other plans. She was walking to the post office 2 days later, her head down against the wind, when she collided with something that felt like a wall of solid muscle. The impact sent her stumbling backward, and strong hands caught her before she could fall. "Steady there." The voice was deep, rough as gravel, but not unkind. Lydia looked up and up, her eyes traveling from a broad chest covered in buckskin and fur to a face carved by sun and wind and years of solitude. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with shoulders that seemed to fill her entire vision. Dark hair fell past his collar, and a thick beard covered the lower half of his face. But it was his eyes that caught her, gray as storm clouds and startlingly direct in their gaze. "I apologize." She pulled away from his grip, stepping back quickly. "I was not watching where I was going." "No harm done." He studied her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "You are Mrs. Brooks." It was not a question. She stiffened. "I am." "How do you know that?" "Small town. People talk." He continued to look at her with those unsettling eyes. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you." The automatic response came easily now. She moved to step around him, wanting to escape this conversation and those penetrating eyes. "You should eat more." His words stopped her. "Winter this harsh. You need your strength." Anger flared in her chest, the first real emotion she had felt in weeks. "I do not recall asking for your opinion on my health, Mr. Kane, Victor Kane." He did not seem offended by her sharp tone. "And you are right. Your business is your own. But I have seen that look before, and it leads nowhere good." "What look?" Despite herself, she was curious. "The look of someone who has stopped living but has not quite managed to die." His words were blunt, almost brutal in their honesty. "Seen it in the mountains. Animals get that way sometimes when they are hurt bad. They just lie down and wait for the end." The comparison stung, perhaps because it was too accurate. "I'm not an injured animal, Mr. Kane. Now if you will excuse me." She walked past him with her head high, her heart pounding with indignation. How dare he speak to her that way? How dare he make assumptions about her life, her pain, her choices? She did not need some crude mountain man telling her how to live, but his words haunted her through the following days. Was that what she had become? An injured animal waiting to die? The thought was disturbing, uncomfortable in a way that penetrated even her carefully maintained numbness. She saw Victor Kane around town over the next week. He seemed to be in no hurry to return to his mountain cabin, though the weather had cleared enough for travel. He helped Mr. Henley repair the store's roof after heavy snow damaged the supports. He chopped wood for the widow Henderson without being asked. He even broke up a fight between 2 drunk miners with an efficiency that suggested considerable experience with violence, though he used no more force than necessary. The townspeople remained wary of him, but their fear gradually mixed with grudging respect. This was a man who could handle himself, who knew the wilderness and survived its dangers. And despite his rough appearance and blunt manner, he was not cruel or mean-spirited, just brutally honest in a way that made people uncomfortable. Lydia tried to avoid him, but Aurora was too small for that to work for long. She encountered him again at the general store when she came down to buy thread. "Mrs. Brooks." He nodded at her from where he stood, examining a new axe blade. "Mr. Kane." She kept her voice neutral, polite but distant. "How is the sewing business?" "Adequate." She selected her thread carefully, not looking at him. "You are very talented. I saw the dress you made for Mrs. Patterson. Fine work." The compliment surprised her. She glanced at him, suspicious. "Thank you." "My coat needs mending." He gestured to a tear in the heavy fur-lined garment he wore. "Caught it on a branch. Would you be willing to repair it?" Lydia hesitated. She needed the work, needed the money. But something about this man unsettled her in ways she could not quite name. "I suppose I could." "It will cost you." "Fair enough." He shrugged out of the massive coat and handed it to her. It was heavier than she expected, lined with thick fur and smelling of wood smoke, leather, and pine. "How much?" She named a price, expecting him to argue. Instead, he simply nodded. "When will it be ready?" 3 days. "I will come by your room to collect it." He paid her in advance with coins that clinked heavily in her palm. "Thank you, Mrs. Brooks." After he left, Martha Henley appeared at Lydia's elbow. Be careful with that one. I am simply mending his coat. Nothing more. He watches you. Martha's voice was concerned. I have seen him. Whenever you are in the store walking past, he watches. Then he's wasting his time. Lydia tucked the coins into her reticule. I have no interest in men, mountain or otherwise. That part of my life is over. But as she carried the heavy coat up to her room, she found herself thinking about Victor Kane in ways that irritated her. He was just a customer, nothing more. She would mend his coat, take his money, and that would be the end of it. The coat took longer to repair than she expected. The tier was extensive, and the material was thick and difficult to work with. She found herself spending hours on it, determined to do the work properly. It was a matter of professional pride, she told herself, nothing to do with the man who would wear it. On the third day, as evening shadows lengthened across her room, a knock sounded at her door. She opened it to find Victor Kane standing in the narrow hallway, seeming even larger in the confined space. Mr. Kane, your coat is ready. She retrieved it from where it hung on a peg and handed it to him. I reinforced the seam as well. It should hold better now. He examined her work carefully, running his fingers over the stitching. This is excellent. Thank you. He pulled the coat on, and she noticed how it fit perfectly across his broad shoulders. You did not charge me enough for this quality of work. The price we agreed upon is fine. No, he pulled out more coins. Take these. You deserve fair payment. Mr. Kane, I said the price was adequate, and I am saying it was not. He placed the coins on her sewing table. You have a skill, Mrs. Brooks. You should value it properly. Before she could argue further, he turned to leave. But he paused in the doorway, looking back at her. There is a winter storm coming in tomorrow, a bad one. Make sure you have enough firewood and food. How do you know there's a storm coming? I know the mountains. I know the weather. His gray eyes were serious. Stock up tonight. The storm will last at least 3 days. I will keep that in mind. Thank you for the warning. He left, his heavy footsteps echoing down the stairs. Lydia stood in her doorway, holding the extra coins he had forced on her, and feeling unsettled in ways she could not explain. Why did he care whether she was prepared for a storm? Why did he watch her, as Martha claimed, and why did his presence affect her when she had sworn never to feel anything for a man again? She pushed the questions away and went downstairs to buy extra firewood and supplies. Whatever his reasons, if Victor Kane said a storm was coming, she believed him. The storm hit the next morning with a fury that rattled windows and piled snow higher than any Lydia had seen. The wind howled like a living thing, and the temperature dropped so low that ice formed on the inside of her window. She huddled near her small stove, grateful for the extra wood she had purchased. The storm lasted 4 days, not 3. By the second day, food in the town was running low. By the third day, several families were burning furniture to stay warm. Lydia rationed her supplies carefully, making small fires and wrapping herself in every blanket she owned. She was cold and hungry, but she had survived worse. She would endure this too. On the 4th day, when the wind finally died and pale sunlight broke through the clouds, someone knocked on her door. She opened it to find Victor Kane standing there with a heavy pack on his back. Mr. Kane, I thought you would have left town before the storm. I delayed my departure. He shrugged off the pack and pulled out packages wrapped in cloth, dried venison, beans, cornmeal, and coffee. You will need these. She stared at the supplies, confused. I do not understand. Why are you giving me food? Because you need it. The storm lasted longer than expected, and I know you did not have enough supplies. How could you possibly know that? I pay attention. He set the packages on her table. Take them. I have more than I need for the journey back to my cabin. Pride warred with practical necessity. She wanted to refuse, wanted to tell him she did not need his charity. But the truth was, she had eaten nothing but a small portion of beans the previous day, and her firewood was nearly gone. I cannot accept this without paying you. Then pay me when you can, or do not pay me at all. It makes no difference to me. He moved toward the door. Wait! The word came out before she could stop it. He turned back and she found herself saying, Why are you helping me? You do not know me. You owe me nothing. He was silent for a long moment, studying her with those storm-gray eyes. Maybe I see something worth helping. Maybe I know what it feels like to give up on living. Maybe I just do not like seeing someone waste away when they still have fight left in them. You do not know anything about me or what I have left in me. I know you are stronger than you think." His voice was quiet, but certain. "I know you survived a bad marriage and a betrayal that would have broken most people. I know you are still here, still working, still breathing. That takes strength, whether you believe it or not." Before she could respond, he was gone, his footsteps fading down the stairs. Lydia stood frozen, his words echoing in her mind. Still here, still working, still breathing. Such simple things, yet he made them sound like victories. She looked at the food he had brought. Part of her wanted to throw it all out the window, to reject his help and his pity and his unsettling observations. But another part of her, a part she had thought was dead, felt something warm flicker in her chest. Not attraction, she told herself firmly. Just gratitude. Simple, practical gratitude for timely assistance, nothing more. She allowed herself to eat a proper meal that night, the first in days. The venison was rich and smoky, and the coffee was the best she had tasted in months. As she sat by her small stove, warming her hands around the tin cup, she thought about Victor Kane and his strange kindness. The next morning, she heard from Martha that the mountain man had left town before dawn, heading back to his cabin in the high country. Something that felt suspiciously like disappointment settled in her stomach, which irritated her. Why should she care whether he stayed or left? He was nothing to her. No one was anything to her anymore. That was how she survived. But over the following weeks, as February melted into March and the snow began to thaw, Lydia found her thoughts returning to Victor Kane with annoying regularity. She remembered his direct gaze, his blunt honesty, the way he had helped her without asking for anything in return. She remembered his words about surviving, about fighting, about being stronger than she thought. And for the first time since Robert's death, she felt something other than emptiness. She felt angry. Angry at her dead husband for his betrayals. Angry at herself for believing his lies. Angry at the world for teaching her that love was just another form of pain. The anger was uncomfortable, but it was better than the numbness. It meant she was still alive, still capable of feeling something. She threw herself into her work with renewed energy, taking on more sewing projects, pushing herself harder. If she was going to survive, she would do it on her own terms, beholden to no one. Spring came slowly to the mountains with cold nights and cautious, warm days. The snow receded, revealing muddy streets and the first green shoots of new growth. Aurora came back to life after the long winter, and with it came new people passing through. Prospectors heading to the mines, families seeking new opportunities, traders restocking the depleted stores. And in late April, Victor Kane returned. Lydia was hanging laundry behind the general store when she saw him ride into town on a sturdy roan horse, his pack mule loaded with furs. Her heart did something strange in her chest, a quick flutter that she firmly ignored. She continued hanging her washing, pretending she had not seen him. But he saw her. She felt his gaze like a physical weight as he dismounted and tied his horse to the rail outside the store. She kept her back to him, focusing intently on pinning a sheet to the line. "Mrs. Brooks." His voice behind her made her jump. She turned to find him standing closer than she expected, close enough to see the new scars on his hands, the deeper lines around his eyes. The winter had been hard on him too. "Mr. Kane, I did not expect to see you again. I come down from the mountain a few times a year for supplies, usually stay a week or two." He paused. "How have you been?" "Well enough," she returned to her laundry, uncomfortable with his scrutiny. "Thank you again for the supplies during the storm. I meant to pay you when you returned. I told you. Payment is not necessary. And I told you I do not accept charity." She faced him squarely. "I will pay you back. Name your price." Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. "You are a stubborn woman." "I'm a woman who pays her debts." "All right." He considered for a moment. "Have dinner with me." The request caught her completely off guard. "What?" "Dinner. Tonight. At the hotel restaurant. That will settle the debt. That is hardly a fair trade for the supplies you brought." "It is fair if I say it is." He crossed his arms over his broad chest. "Unless you are afraid to have dinner with a mountain man." It was a deliberate challenge, and they both knew it. Lydia felt that spark of anger again, the one that told her she was still alive. "I am not afraid of anything. But I should tell you, Mr. Kane, that I have no interest in courtship or romance or whatever you might be hoping for. I am done with all of that." "Good. So am I." His answer surprised her. "I'm just asking for dinner with another human being. Conversation, nothing more. I spend most of my time alone in the mountains. Sometimes it is nice to talk to someone who talks back." Put that way, it seemed less threatening. Just two solitary people sharing a meal. Nothing romantic about it. "Fine. Dinner. Tonight. But this settles my debt completely." Agreed. He walked away, leaving Lydia standing among her half-hung laundry, wondering what she had just gotten herself into. This was a mistake. She should have just paid him money and been done with it. Having dinner with him would only encourage further interaction, and that was the last thing she wanted. But a deal was a deal, and Lydia Brooks always kept her word. That evening, she changed into her best dress, a simple gray wool that had been her wedding dress before she dyed it to remove the memories. She pinned her blonde hair up carefully, studying her reflection in the small mirror above her washstand. She looked pale and thin, but presentable. This was not about impressing anyone. This was about settling a debt. Victor Kane was waiting outside the hotel when she arrived. He had cleaned up, shaving his beard into a neat trim and pulling his long hair back. He wore what appeared to be his best clothes, though they were still rough and practical. He looked uncomfortable in them, like a wild animal forced into domestication. "Mrs. Brooks," he offered his arm formally. "You look lovely." "Thank you." She took his arm reluctantly, hyper-aware of the solid muscle beneath her fingers. "Let us get this over with." He made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Such enthusiasm. I'm overwhelmed." The hotel restaurant was small but clean, with checkered tablecloths and oil lamps that cast warm light across the wooden tables. Several other diners looked up with interest as Victor and Lydia entered, and she could practically hear the gossip starting. By tomorrow morning, the entire town would be talking about the widow Brooks having dinner with the mountain man. Let them talk. She no longer cared what anyone thought. They sat at a corner table, and Victor ordered for both of them steak and potatoes and fresh bread. Lydia waited for him to begin some awkward attempt at courtship, but instead he simply asked, "How is your sewing business?" "Busy. Spring means people need new clothes for warmer weather. I have more work than I can handle." "That is good. You are skilled at what you do. What about you? How was your winter in the mountains?" "Cold, quiet. I brought down some good furs, though. Should get a decent price for them." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. It was lonely. The admission surprised her. "I thought you preferred solitude." "I do, most of the time. But sometimes the silence gets too heavy, you know. Sometimes you need to hear another voice, see another face." His gray eyes met hers. "Even if you have convinced yourself you are better off alone." Was he talking about himself or her? Lydia looked away, uncomfortable with the parallel he was drawing. There are worse things than being alone. True, but there are better things too. Like what? The challenge came out sharper than she intended. Like good conversation, shared meals, laughter. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "When was the last time you laughed, Mrs. Brooks?" She opened her mouth to answer, and realized she could not remember. Not since before her marriage, certainly. Not in the past 3 years. The realization was unsettling. "I thought so." His voice was gentle. "You have forgotten how to live. You're just going through the motions day after day, telling yourself that this is enough. And what would you know about it?" Anger flared hot in her chest. "You live alone on a mountain. You have no family, no friends, no connections to anyone. You are no different from me." "You are right." His agreement took the wind from her sails. "I am no different. I ran away from pain too, buried myself in the wilderness and told myself I was better off alone. But that does not make it true for either of us." "What pain did you run from?" The question came out before she could stop it. He was silent for a long moment, his jaw tight. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "I had a wife once. Her name was Catherine. She died bringing our daughter into the world. The baby died too. That was 7 years ago." The raw grief in his words hit Lydia like a physical blow. She had been so focused on her own pain, her own anger, that she had not considered what sorrows might drive a man into the isolation of the mountains. "I am so sorry." "So am I." He looked down at his hands, scarred and calloused. After it happened, I could not stand to be around people. Everyone pitied me, looked at me like I was broken. So I left. Built a cabin as far from civilization as I could get, told myself I was fine alone. Are you? The question was barely a whisper. No. He met her eyes again. But I am learning that fine and happy are not the same thing. I can survive alone. I have been surviving for 7 years. But that is all I have been doing. Surviving, not living. The food arrived and they ate in silence for a while, both lost in their own thoughts. Lydia found herself reassessing everything she thought she knew about Victor Kane. He was not just a rough mountain man. He was a man carrying his own grief, his own scars. A man who had lost everything and chosen isolation over pain. A man very much like her. "Why did you come back to town?" she asked finally. "If you need supplies, there are other places closer to your cabin." "Aurora has what I need." His gaze was steady on hers. "And sometimes a man gets tired of running from his ghosts." They finished the meal talking about safer topics, the weather, the town, the price of furs and fabric. But underneath the ordinary conversation, something else hummed between them, something Lydia was not ready to name or acknowledge. When the meal ended, Victor walked her back to the general store. They stood in the street under the stars, the spring air cool but not cold. "Thank you for dinner, Mr. Kane. Consider my debt paid." "Victor. Call me Victor." He looked down at her, and in the moonlight his face seemed younger, less harsh. "And I enjoyed the evening, Lydia. May I call you Lydia?" The use of her first name felt intimate, dangerous, but she nodded. "If you wish." "Would you have dinner with me again? Not as a debt, just because I would like to spend more time with you." Every instinct screamed at her to say no, to protect herself, to maintain the walls she had built so carefully around her heart. But another part of her, the part that had felt dead for so long, whispered, "Yes." "I do not know if that is wise." "Probably not." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "But I'm asking anyway." "Why me?" The question burst out. "There are other women in town, younger, prettier, less damaged." "I do not want other women. I want to know you." His answer was simple, direct. "You are the first person in 7 years who has made me want to try living again instead of just surviving." The honesty in his words terrified her. This was too much, too fast. She was not ready for this. "Victor, I need to be clear with you. I do not believe in love anymore. My husband taught me that love is just a pretty lie people tell each other before the pain starts. I will not go through that again. I am not asking you to love me. I am not asking for promises or commitment or anything you cannot give." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently touched her hand. "I am just asking for a chance to be friends, to share meals and conversation, to remind each other what it feels like to connect with another human being. Nothing more than that." His hand was warm, calloused, completely different from Robert's soft, smooth fingers. She should pull away. She should end this now before it went any further. But instead she found herself saying, "Just friends." "Just friends," he agreed. "No expectations, no romance, no love." "Agreed." She pulled her hand back, needing the distance. "I will have dinner with you again. But if you start trying to court me, if you start pushing for more, I will end this friendship immediately. Do you understand?" "Perfectly." He stepped back, giving her space. "Good night, Lydia." "Good night, Victor." She watched him walk away, his tall figure disappearing into the shadows. What had she just agreed to? Having dinner with a man, spending time with him, letting him into her carefully controlled life. This was foolish, dangerous, exactly the kind of mistake she had sworn never to make again. But as she climbed the stairs to her lonely room, she felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Not happiness exactly, not hope, but something close to curiosity. And that scared her more than anything. The next week passed in a strange new rhythm. Victor came by the general store every day, sometimes to buy supplies, sometimes just to talk. He never pushed, never demanded more than she was willing to give. They talked about inconsequential things at first: the weather, the town, his work hunting and trapping in the mountains, her sewing projects. Safe, comfortable conversations that required no vulnerability. But gradually, As Lydia grew more comfortable with his presence, the conversations deepened. He told her about his life before the mountains, growing up in Missouri, working as a scout for wagon trains heading west, meeting Catherine at a trading post and falling in love so fast it scared him. She told him about her childhood in Ohio, her father's death when she was 17, her desperation to escape her stepmother's cruelty, and how Robert's proposal had seemed like salvation. "He was so charming at first," she said one afternoon as they walked along the creek outside town. Victor had suggested fresh air, and she had agreed, needing escape from her small room. "He said all the right things, made all the right promises. I thought I was so lucky." "When did it change?" "Almost immediately after the wedding." The memories were bitter. "He started staying out late, coming home drunk. Money disappeared. He became angry when I questioned him, and then I started hearing rumors about other women." "Did you confront him?" "Once. He hit me." She said it flatly, without emotion. "Told me I was lucky to have him, that no other man would want a plain, boring wife like me. After that, I stopped confronting him. I just endured." Victor's jaw tightened, and she saw his hands clench into fists. He deserved what he got. Perhaps, but his death changed nothing for me. I was already dead inside by then. She stopped walking, looking at the water rushing past. "I'm still dead inside, Victor. You should know that. Whatever you think you see in me, it is not real. There is nothing left." "I do not believe that." He moved to stand beside her. "If there was nothing left, you would not be standing here. You would have given up completely, but you are still fighting, still surviving. That takes something. Surviving is not the same as living. You said so yourself." "True, but surviving is the first step to living. You have to survive before you can do anything else." He turned to face her. "I'm not asking you to be something you are not, Lydia. I am not asking you to feel things you do not feel. I just want to be here, beside you, while we both figure out how to take the next step." She looked up at him, at this strong, damaged man who somehow understood her in ways no one else ever had. "What if there is no next step? What if this is all there is? Then we will survive together instead of alone. That is still better than what we had before." They stood by the creek in silence, watching the water flow. Lydia felt something shift inside her, some small crack in the armor she had built around her heart. It terrified her, but she did not run. She stayed, standing beside Victor, letting herself feel the warmth of the sun and the cool breeze and the strange comfort of his presence. That night, lying in her narrow bed, she admitted something to herself that she had been denying for weeks. She liked Victor Kane. Not in a romantic way, she told herself firmly. But she liked his company, his honesty, the way he did not expect her to be anything other than what she was. For the first time since Robert's death, she did not feel completely alone, and that scared her more than anything. The following weeks brought warmer weather and longer days. Victor stayed in Aurora longer than he had planned, finding excuses to delay his return to the mountains. He helped repair the church roof, worked odd jobs for townspeople, and spent every spare moment with Lydia. They took long walks, shared meals, and talked about everything and nothing. The townspeople noticed, of course. Gossip spread like wildfire, speculation about the widow and the mountain man. Were they courting? Would they marry? Lydia ignored the whispers, but they bothered her more than she wanted to admit. She was not courting Victor. They were just friends. That was all. But friendship gradually became something more, though neither of them acknowledged it. Victor started bringing her small gifts: a perfectly carved wooden thimble, wildflowers from the mountain meadows, a soft rabbit fur to line her winter coat. She protested each gift, insisting he should not spend money or time on her, but secretly she treasured each one. She began looking forward to seeing him each day, feeling disappointed when he was busy with work. She caught herself smiling more, laughing at his dry observations about town life. She started to care about her appearance again, taking extra time with her hair, wearing her better dresses when she knew he would visit. And one evening in late May, when he walked her home after dinner at the hotel, he took her hand and did not let go. They stood outside the general store, fingers intertwined, and something passed between them that was definitely not just friendship. "I should go inside," Lydia said, but she did not move. "Probably." Victor's thumb brushed across her knuckles. But I do not want you to. Victor, we agreed. Just friends, nothing more. I know what we agreed. His gray eyes were dark in the twilight. But I'm starting to think we were both lying to ourselves. I cannot do this. She pulled her hand away, panic rising in her chest. I told you I do not believe in love anymore. I meant it. I am not asking you to believe in love. I am just asking you to believe in what is happening between us right now, in this moment. He reached up slowly and touched her face, his calloused fingers gentle against her cheek. I feel something when I am with you, something I thought died with Catherine, and I think you feel it too, no matter how much you want to deny it. She did feel it. That was the terrifying truth. When Victor touched her, when he looked at her with those storm-gray eyes, she felt alive in ways she had forgotten were possible. But feeling alive meant being vulnerable to pain, and she had sworn never to be vulnerable again. I am afraid. The admission came out as a whisper. So am I. His voice was rough with emotion. I'm terrified. I spent 7 years hiding in the mountains because I was too afraid to risk feeling anything again. But then I met you, and suddenly, surviving is not enough anymore. I want to live, Lydia, and I want to live with you. You do not know what you are asking. I am broken, Victor. My husband broke something in me that cannot be fixed. You are not broken. You are wounded. There is a difference. He cupped her face with both hands now, his touch achingly gentle. And I am not your husband. I will never be your husband unless you want me to be. But I'm here, right now, asking you to give me a chance. Give us a chance. Tears burned in her eyes, the first tears she had shed in months. What if I cannot? What if I am too damaged to feel anything real? Then we will figure it out together. But you have to be willing to try, Lydia. You have to stop running from the possibility of happiness just because you have known pain. He was right. She knew he was right. But knowing it and accepting it were two different things. She stood frozen, torn between the safety of her self-imposed isolation and the terrifying possibility of something more. Victor waited, patient and steady, his hands warm against her face. And finally, moving on instinct rather than logic, Lydia rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was tentative, uncertain, flavored with salt from the tears sliding down her cheeks. But Victor responded with a gentleness that made her heart ache. He kissed her like she was something precious, something worth protecting. Not with the demanding passion Robert had shown in the beginning, but with a tenderness that spoke of real feeling, real connection. When they finally pulled apart, Lydia was trembling. I do not know how to do this. I do not know how to trust again. Neither do I. Victor rested his forehead against hers. But I think we can learn together. She nodded, unable to speak past the emotion clogging her throat. He held her for a long moment, his strong arms wrapped around her, and she let herself sink into his warmth. For the first time in years, she felt safe. I should return to my cabin soon, Victor said eventually. I have been gone longer than planned, but I will come back in a few weeks. Will you be here? Where else would I go? She managed a shaky smile. Come with me. The suggestion shocked her. What? Come with me to the mountains, see where I live. Spend a few days away from town, away from the gossip and the memories. Just you and me and the wilderness. He pulled back to look at her. I know it is a bold request, but I want you to see that part of my life. And I think you need to get away from Aurora for a while. I have work. I cannot just leave. Your customers can wait a week. The world will not end if their dresses are finished late. His eyes were intense. Live a little, Lydia. Take a risk. It was completely improper. An unmarried woman going to a man's cabin in the mountains, spending days alone with him. The scandal would be immense. Everyone in Aurora would assume the worst. But part of Lydia, the part that was slowly coming back to life, did not care. What did she owe the townspeople? What did she owe anyone? She had spent 3 years in a miserable marriage trying to be the perfect wife. She had spent months in isolation, barely surviving. Maybe it was time to do something just for herself, propriety be damned. All right, the words came out before she could reconsider. I will come with you. Victor's face lit with a smile that transformed his harsh features. Really? Really? But if you try to take advantage of me in any way, I will shoot you and leave your body for the bears. He laughed, a genuine sound of pure joy. Fair enough. We leave tomorrow morning. Bring warm clothes and good boots. The mountain is beautiful, but it's not gentle. They parted with one more kiss, this one less tentative, more certain. Lydia climbed the stairs to her room in a daze. What had she just agreed to? Going into the wilderness with a man she had only known a few weeks? This was insane, reckless, exactly the kind of foolish decision that led to heartbreak. But as she packed a small bag that night, choosing her warmest clothes and sturdiest boots, she felt something she had not felt in years. Excitement, anticipation, the thrill of stepping into the unknown. Maybe Victor was right. Maybe it was time to stop surviving and start living. They left Aurora before dawn, riding out on Victor's horse with his pack mule following behind. Lydia sat in front of him, held secure by his strong arms, watching the town disappear behind them as they climbed into the foothills. A few early risers saw them leave, and she knew the gossip would be vicious, but she pushed the thought away. Let them talk. She was done living her life according to other people's expectations. The ride took most of the day. They followed narrow trails that wound through pine forests and across rushing streams. The air grew thinner and colder as they climbed, but the scenery was breathtaking. Towering peaks surrounded them, still snow-capped despite the late spring warmth. Eagles soared overhead, and once they spotted a herd of elk grazing in a distant meadow. Victor pointed out landmarks as they rode, telling her stories about the mountains, how he had survived his first winter, learning to read the weather and the animal tracks, the places he hunted and fished, the hidden valleys where wildflowers bloomed in summer. He spoke with a love for this harsh land that was evident in every word. "You really do love it here," Lydia said, leaning back against his solid chest. "I do. It is hard and lonely sometimes, but it is honest. The mountains do not lie or betray. They are what they are. No pretense, no false promises." He tightened his arms around her slightly. "Though I'm starting to think lonely and alone might not be the same thing either." They reached his cabin in late afternoon. It was larger than Lydia expected, built from solid logs with a stone chimney and a covered porch. It sat in a small clearing surrounded by towering pines, with a creek running nearby and a magnificent view of the valley below. Victor helped her dismount and led her inside. The cabin was a single large room with a stone fireplace, a sturdy bed in one corner, a rough table and chairs, and shelves filled with supplies and tools. Furs covered the floor and the bed, adding warmth and comfort. It was simple but well made, everything practical and efficient. "It is not fancy," Victor said, suddenly seeming uncertain, "but it is solid and warm." "It is wonderful." Lydia turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. "You built this yourself?" "Most of it took me the better part of a year." He moved to the fireplace and began building a fire. "There's a second cabin about 100 yards that way." He gestured. "Built it last summer. Smaller, just one room, but it has a bed and a stove. You can stay there. I want you to feel safe here, Lydia. I am not going to pressure you into anything." The fact that he had planned for her comfort, that he understood her need for safety and space, touched her deeply. "Thank you." They spent the evening settling in. Victor showed her around the clearing, pointing out the cold cellar where he stored meat and vegetables, the shed where he kept his tools, the small garden plot he had started preparing for summer planting. He brought her water from the creek and made sure she had everything she needed in the smaller cabin. As darkness fell, they sat on his porch and watched the stars emerge. There were more stars here than Lydia had ever seen, brilliant points of light spreading across the black sky like scattered diamonds. It is so quiet," she said softly. "I had forgotten the world could be this quiet. That is what I love most about it, the silence. In town there is always noise, always people talking and moving. Up here it is just the wind and the water and the animals. You can hear yourself think." "What do you think about? When you are alone up here?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I used to think about Catherine and the baby, what our life would have been like if they had lived. But lately I have been thinking about you, wondering if you were eating enough, staying warm, working too hard, wondering if you thought about me the way I thought about you." "I did." The admission came easier in the darkness. "I tried not to, but I did. You made me feel things I thought were dead. Good things or bad things? confusing things. She turned to look at him. I'm still afraid, Victor. Every time I start to feel something for you, part of me screams to run away before I get hurt again. I understand. I feel the same way. He reached over and took her hand. But I'm tired of running. I'm tired of letting fear control my life. Catherine would not have wanted me to spend the rest of my days alone and miserable. She would have wanted me to live, to be happy. And I think your happiness matters more than your dead husband's betrayals. How do you know Catherine would have wanted that? Maybe she would want you to mourn forever. Because I knew her. She was kind and full of life and always seeing the good in everything. She would hate knowing I have been hiding up here for 7 years. His voice grew rough with emotion. And I think if she could speak to me now, she would tell me to take the chance with you, to stop being afraid and start living again. Lydia squeezed his hand. I wish I had known her. She would have liked you. You have the same strength she did, the same refusal to give up even when things are hard. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. Stay up here with me for a few days, Lydia. Let me show you what life could be like. No promises, no expectations. Just a chance to see if this thing between us is real. I am already here, she pointed out. I know, but I need to hear you say you want to be here, that you are choosing this, choosing me, even if just for a few days. She looked at his face in the starlight, at the hope and vulnerability in his eyes. This strong, capable man who had survived so much loss was asking her to take a chance on something fragile and new. How could she refuse? I want to be here, she said softly. I am choosing this, choosing you, for these few days at least. He pulled her close and kissed her, deep and slow and full of promise, and Lydia, who had sworn never to believe in love again, felt something crack wide open inside her chest. Not love, she told herself, not yet, but maybe the possibility of love, and that was more than she had dared to hope for in a very long time. The next few days passed in a dreamlike haze. Victor taught her about mountain life, showing her how to read animal tracks, where to find the best fishing spots, how to identify edible plants and dangerous ones. They worked side by side in his garden, planting seeds that would feed him through the next winter. They cooked meals together over his fireplace, simple food that tasted better than anything Lydia remembered eating. And they talked. Long, deep conversations about their lives, their losses, their fears and hopes. Victor told her about his childhood, growing up with 3 brothers on a small farm in Missouri. How he had left home at 16 to seek adventure, working as a scout and guide for wagon trains. How he had loved the freedom of the wilderness even then, the challenge of surviving on his own skills. I met Catherine at a trading post in Wyoming, he said one afternoon as they sat by the creek. She was traveling with her family, heading to Oregon. I took one look at her and knew she was the one. Sounds foolish, I know, but it was true. It does not sound foolish, Lydia said. It sounds lucky, to know that quickly, to be that certain. It was lucky. We had 3 good years together before she got pregnant. She was so happy about the baby, used to talk to her belly all the time, singing songs and telling stories. His voice grew heavy. When the labor started going wrong, I rode for the doctor, but he was too far away. By the time I got back, they were both gone. Lydia reached over and took his hand. That must have been unbearable. It was. I wanted to die too. For months after, I thought about just walking into the wilderness and not coming back. But something kept me going. Stubbornness, maybe, or anger. I was so angry at God, at fate, at the unfairness of it all. He looked at their joined hands. Eventually, the anger faded, but the emptiness remained. So I came up here and built this cabin and told myself I was fine alone. But you were not fine. No, I was just numb, same as you were numb. He turned to face her. But then I saw you that day in town, looking so lost and broken, and something in me recognized something in you. 2 wounded souls trying to survive, and I thought maybe we could help each other heal. Is that what we are doing? Healing? I hope so. He cupped her face gently. Because when I am with you, I feel alive again. The emptiness is not as deep. The loneliness is not as sharp. You make me want to be better, do better, live better. You make me feel the same way. The admission was hard, but necessary. I'm still afraid. But when I'm with you, The fear is not quite as overwhelming." He kissed her then, and Lydia felt herself responding with a passion that shocked her. She had thought that part of her was dead, killed by Robert's betrayals and cruelty. But Victor's touch awakened something she had thought lost forever. Not just desire, though there was that, but something deeper, softer. The possibility of trust, the hope for real connection. That night she did not return to the smaller cabin. She stayed with Victor, lying in his arms in front of the fire, talking until the early hours of morning. They did not make love, both of them understanding that they were not quite ready for that step. But they held each other, finding comfort in simple closeness, and that was enough. The next day, Victor took her to his favorite place in the mountains, a hidden meadow high above the tree line. They rode for hours, climbing steep trails that made Lydia's heart pound with exertion and fear. But when they finally emerged into the meadow, she understood why he loved it so much. The meadow was a sea of wildflowers, brilliant reds and yellows and purples, spreading as far as she could see. The peaks rose around them like sentinels, and the sky was so blue it hurt to look at. The air was thin and cold, but incredibly clear, making everything seem sharp and vivid. "This is where I come when the loneliness gets too heavy," Victor said, helping her dismount. "Something about this place reminds me that beauty still exists, even after loss." They walked through the flowers, and Lydia felt tears streaming down her face, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming beauty of it all. For so long she had seen nothing but gray, felt nothing but emptiness, but here, in this wild place with this unexpected man, she felt color returning to her world. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said, turning to face him. "Thank you for not giving up on me when I had given up on myself." "I will never give up on you, Lydia." His voice was fierce with conviction. "Even when you push me away, even when you tell me to leave you alone, I will be here, waiting, hoping, believing that you are worth fighting for." "Why?" the question burst out. "Why do you care so much? You barely know me." "I know enough. I know you are strong and brave and resilient. I know you survived things that would have destroyed most people. I know you have a good heart under all that armor you have built." He stepped closer. "And I know that when I look at you, I see a future instead of just a past. That is why I care." Lydia felt something break inside her then, some last defensive wall crumbling. She had been so determined to never love again, to never trust again. But Victor had slipped past all her defenses with his honesty and patience and quiet strength. She was falling for him, had been falling for him from that very first collision in the street. And the terrifying truth was, she did not want to stop. "I am falling in love with you." The words came out as a whisper, almost lost in the mountain wind. "I do not want to. I tried not to, but I am." Victor's face transformed with joy. He pulled her into his arms, lifting her off her feet. "Say it again." "I'm falling in love with you, Victor Kane." Louder this time, more certain. "And it terrifies me." "I'm falling in love with you too, Lydia Brooks." He set her down gently, cradling her face in his hands. "And yes, it terrifies me. But I'm done running from my fears. I want to run toward something instead, toward you, toward us, toward whatever future we can build together." "What if I am not ready for that? What if I cannot be what you need?" "You are exactly what I need. Imperfect, wounded, scared, but trying. That is all anyone can be." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "I'm not asking you to be perfect, Lydia. I'm just asking you to be honest, to stay with me, even when it is hard, to let me love you, even though it scares you." "I can do that." She wrapped her arms around his neck. "I want to do that, but I need time. I need to go slowly. We will go as slowly as you need, days, months, years, I do not care, as long as we are moving forward together." They stayed in the meadow until sunset, talking and kissing and simply being together. When they finally rode back to the cabin, Lydia felt different, lighter, as if some heavy burden she had been carrying for years had finally been lifted. That night, wrapped in Victor's arms, she slept deeply for the first time in months. No nightmares, no anxiety, just peaceful rest. And when she woke to find him watching her with such tenderness in his eyes, she knew she had made the right choice, trusting him, trusting herself, taking the risk. They spent one more day in the mountains before returning to Aurora. Victor wanted to give her more time, But Lydia knew she had responsibilities waiting. Her customers would be wondering where she had gone. The gossip would be intense. She needed to face the consequences of her choices. The ride back down the mountain felt different from the journey up. Then, Lydia had been tentative, uncertain, still guarding her heart. Now she leaned back against Victor's chest with easy familiarity, comfortable in his arms, secure in the knowledge that he would not let her fall. "But what will you tell people?" Victor asked as they approached the outskirts of Aurora. "About where you have been?" "The truth. That I went to visit your cabin in the mountains." She felt him tense behind her. "I will not lie or hide what we are to each other, Victor. People can think what they want. They will think the worst. Let them. I am done living my life according to other people's judgments." She turned to look at him over her shoulder. "Unless you are ashamed to be seen with me." "Ashamed?" He sounded genuinely shocked. "Lydia, I am proud to be with you. I just do not want you to suffer because of me. Then stay with me. Do not hide in the mountains for months at a time. Be here, in town, where people can see that we are together." She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Move to Aurora. Build a life here with me. You want me to give up my cabin? I want you to give up hiding." She faced forward again, unable to watch his face. "You said you were done running from your fears. Prove it. Make a choice to be part of the world again instead of apart from it." He was silent for so long that Lydia thought she had pushed too far. Then he spoke, his voice rough with emotion. "You are right. I have been using that cabin as an excuse to avoid living. If I am going to build a life with you, I need to actually build a life, not just exist in isolation." "You will stay?" Hope fluttered in her chest. "I will stay. I can still hunt and trap, sell my furs. But I will make Aurora my home base, our home base." He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "If you will have me." "I will have you." The words came easily, naturally. "But we should be clear about expectations. I am not ready to marry. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time." "I understand. We will take things at whatever pace you need." They rode into Aurora in the late afternoon, and just as Lydia expected, people stared. Whispers followed them down the main street. She held her head high, refusing to show any shame or embarrassment. Let them talk. She had found something real with Victor, something worth protecting. The opinions of gossipy townspeople meant nothing compared to that. Victor helped her dismount outside the general store, holding her hand openly for anyone to see. "I need to find lodging. The hotel, probably." "No." The decision came suddenly, but felt right. "Stay with me. My room is small, but we can make it work." "Lydia, that will create even more scandal." "I know." She smiled up at him. "But I'm done caring about scandal. I want to wake up next to you. I want to fall asleep in your arms. If that shocks people, so be it." His answering smile was brilliant. "Then I will stay with you. And tomorrow I will start looking for land to buy, a place where we can build our own home, something bigger than my mountain cabin, but with the same solidity." Our home. She liked the sound of that. Yes. They climbed the stairs to her room together, Victor having to duck to avoid hitting his head on the low ceiling. The space that had seemed adequate for one person suddenly felt cramped with his large frame filling it. But Lydia did not mind. She liked having him close, liked the way his presence made the lonely room feel warm and alive. Over the following weeks, they settled into a new rhythm. Victor found work helping with construction projects around town, his strength and skill making him valuable despite the lingering suspicion some townspeople felt toward him. He bought a piece of land on the outskirts of Aurora, a beautiful spot with a creek running through it, and began building them a house. Lydia continued her sewing work, but with Victor's support she was able to be more selective about which projects she took on. They saved money carefully, planning for their future together, and slowly, cautiously, Lydia allowed herself to believe that future was real. The gossip continued, of course. Some people condemned Lydia for living in sin with a man she was not married to. Others pitied her, assuming Victor was taking advantage of a vulnerable widow. But gradually, as weeks turned to months and Victor proved himself a steady, reliable presence in her life, the talk died down. People began to accept them as a couple, unusual perhaps, but genuine. Martha Henley became an unexpected ally. "I misjudged him," she admitted to Lydia one day in the store. "I thought he was dangerous, but I see now he is just protective of you. That is different. He is a good man." Lydia did not try to hide her feelings anymore. "Better than I thought existed." "You look happy." "Really happy, not just pretending." Martha squeezed her hand. "I'm glad you found each other." Summer came to the mountains in full glory, warm days and cool nights filled with stars. Victor's house took shape steadily, a solid two-room structure with a real floor and glass windows and a stone fireplace he built with his own hands. Lydia helped when she could, learning about construction and loving the physical work. One evening in late July, as they sat on the porch of the nearly finished house, Victor turned to her with unusual nervousness. "Lydia, I need to ask you something." "All right." She sensed the importance of the moment. "I know you said you were not ready to marry. I know you need time. But I need to know if marriage is something you might want eventually. Because if it is not, if you never want to be married again, I need to accept that now." Lydia considered carefully. 6 months ago, marriage would have been unthinkable. The very word had made her stomach turn. But now, looking at the house Victor had built for them, feeling the steady love he showed her every day, she found her feelings had changed. "I might want it eventually," she said slowly. "With you. Only with you. But I need more time to be sure, to trust that what we have is real and lasting." "How much time?" There was no pressure in his question, just genuine curiosity. "I do not know. Months? A year? Until I am absolutely certain that I am choosing marriage because I want it, not because society expects it, or because I am afraid to be alone." She took his hand. "Can you wait that long?" "I can wait forever, if that's what you need." He raised her hand to his lips. "But I want you to know that I am already certain. I want to marry you, Lydia. I want to build a life together, have children if you want them, grow old watching these mountains change with the seasons. I want all of it with you." Tears filled her eyes. "I want that too. I'm just afraid." "I know. But I also know you are brave enough to face that fear." He pulled her close. "Take all the time you need. I am not going anywhere." They moved into the new house in August, and Lydia felt like she was finally home. Not the oppressive prison of her marriage to Robert, not the lonely room above the store, but a real home filled with love and possibility. Victor had built shelves for her sewing supplies, a large table where she could work, and a bedroom with a real bed covered in soft furs. It was rustic but comfortable, practical but beautiful. "It is perfect," she told him as they stood in the main room on their first night. "Thank you for building this for us. I built it for you." He wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Everything I do is for you." That night they made love for the first time. It was tender and careful, Victor understanding without words that Lydia needed gentleness, needed to know she was safe. Afterward, lying in his arms, she cried, releasing years of pain and fear. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I am still afraid, but I love you." "I love you too." His voice was thick with emotion. "And I will spend every day proving that I am worthy of that love." Fall came with brilliant colors painting the aspen trees gold and red. Victor taught Lydia how to preserve meat for winter, how to can vegetables from their garden, how to prepare for the long cold months ahead. They worked together seamlessly now, each understanding what the other needed without having to ask. In October, Lydia made a decision. She was working on a dress for a customer when Victor came in from chopping wood, and she looked up at him, this strong, patient man who had given her so much. And suddenly, she was certain. "I want to marry you." The words came out of nowhere, startling them both. Victor froze, the axe still in his hand. "What?" "I want to marry you," she repeated, standing up. "Not because I am afraid to be alone, not because society says I should, but because I love you and I want to build a life with you officially and completely. I want to be your wife, Victor Kane, if you will still have me." He dropped the axe and crossed the room in 3 long strides, sweeping her into his arms. "If I will still have you? Lydia, I have been waiting for this moment since the day I met you." "Is that a yes?" She laughed through happy tears. "That is the most definite yes you will ever hear." He spun her around, both of them laughing like children. "When? Tomorrow? Today?" "Soon. But I want to do it properly, with the preacher and witnesses and everything legal." She cupped his face in her hands. I want everyone to know that you are mine and I am yours. Then we will do it properly. He kissed her deeply. But I am warning you, I am going to be the most impatient groom Aurora has ever seen. They were married 3 weeks later, on a crisp November morning with blue skies and golden sunlight. The entire town came to the ceremony, even those who had gossiped about them. Lydia wore a new dress she had made herself, deep blue wool that brought out the color of her eyes. Victor wore his best clothes and looked so handsome that several women sighed audibly when he stood at the altar. As the preacher spoke the familiar words, Lydia looked at Victor and felt nothing but certainty. This was right. He was right. They were right together. All the pain of her past, all the fear and doubt, seemed distant now, like a bad dream she had finally woken from. When Victor said his vows, his voice was strong and clear. I promise to love you, protect you, and stand beside you through whatever comes. I promise to be honest, faithful, and true. I promise to make you laugh when you need joy and hold you when you need comfort. I promise to be your partner, your friend, and your love for all the days of my life. Lydia's own vows were equally heartfelt. I promise to trust you even when fear tells me not to. I promise to love you with all the strength I have. I promise to build a life with you filled with honesty and laughter and hope. I promise to be your wife in all ways, standing with you through joy and hardship. And I promise to never give up on us, on this love we have built together. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Victor kissed her with such tenderness that tears sprang to Lydia's eyes. This was what love was supposed to feel like, safe and exciting all at once, steady but passionate, real. The town threw them a celebration at the hotel, with food and music and dancing. Lydia danced with her new husband, feeling lighter than air. She saw Martha Henley watching with approval, saw other townspeople smiling and nodding, saw acceptance where there had once been judgment. Happy? Victor murmured in her ear as they swayed to the music. Happier than I ever thought I could be. She looked up at him. You saved me, Victor. You made me believe in love again when I thought it was impossible. You saved me too. You gave me a reason to come down from that mountain and live again. He kissed her forehead. We saved each other. They left the celebration early, eager to begin their married life. As they walked to their house under the stars, Lydia felt overwhelming gratitude for the strange path that had brought her here. If Robert had not betrayed her, if she had not given up on love completely, she might never have been open to Victor's quiet persistence. Her pain had led her to healing. Her despair had led her to hope. What are you thinking? Victor asked as they entered their home. That sometimes the worst things lead to the best things, that sometimes you have to break completely before you can heal properly. She turned to face him. That I am grateful for everything that brought me to you, even the painful parts. I feel the same way. He pulled her close. Now come to bed, Mrs. Kane. I want to start our marriage properly. She laughed, the sound full of joy and love. Yes, Mr. Kane. I think that is an excellent idea. Winter settled over the mountains with heavy snows and bitter cold, but inside their sturdy house, Victor and Lydia stayed warm. They spent the long evenings by the fire, talking and reading and simply being together. Victor told her stories of his scouting days, and she told him about the dresses she dreamed of making. They planned for the future, talking about the possibility of children, the improvements they wanted to make to the house, the life they would build together. On Christmas morning, Victor gave Lydia a gift he had been working on in secret. It was a beautiful wooden rocking chair, carved with intricate designs of mountains and flowers. For when we have children, he explained, suddenly shy. I thought you might like to rock them to sleep in something special. Lydia ran her fingers over the smooth wood, touched beyond words. It is beautiful. Thank you. Do you want children? He had asked before, but always cautiously, giving her space to change her mind. Yes. The answer came easily now. I want to have your children, Victor. I want to fill this house with love and laughter and family. His joy was evident in his smile. Then that is what we will do. Spring came late that year, with snow lingering well into April. But when the thaw finally came, it brought new life to the mountains. And it brought news to Lydia that made her heart sing. I am with child, she told Victor one evening in May, watching his face carefully for his reaction. For a moment he just stared at her, and she saw a flash of fear in his eyes, remembering Catherine. But then he pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "Are you happy?" she asked, her voice muffled against his chest. Happy and terrified. He pulled back to look at her. "Lydia, I cannot lose you. I will not survive it." "You will not lose me." She placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "I am strong, Victor, and I have the best doctor in the territory on call. Everything will be fine. Promise me." His voice was raw. "Promise me you will be careful, that you will not take risks." "I promise." She kissed him gently. "We are going to be parents, Victor. Let yourself be happy about that." And gradually, he did. As Lydia's belly swelled with new life, Victor became increasingly protective and devoted. He insisted she stop taking sewing jobs that required her to strain or lean over for long periods. He cooked for her, made sure she rested, and watched her constantly for any signs of distress. "I am pregnant, not dying," she told him with amused exasperation when he tried to carry her up a slight incline. "I know, but humor me. I need to take care of you." She let him, understanding that his attentiveness came from a place of deep love and old fear. And truthfully, she enjoyed being cared for. Robert had never shown concern for her well-being. Victor's constant attention felt like the precious gift it was. Summer passed peacefully. They prepared the house for the baby, with Victor building a beautiful cradle from seasoned pine. Lydia sewed tiny clothes and blankets, her heart full of hope and anticipation. The townspeople were kind, bringing gifts and offering advice. Martha Henley appointed herself unofficial grandmother, stopping by regularly to check on Lydia. "You are glowing," Martha said one afternoon in August. "Motherhood suits you." "I feel good, tired, but good." Lydia rested her hand on her large belly. "The baby is very active. Victor talks to him every night." "Him? You think it is a boy?" "Victor hopes for a boy, but I do not care either way. I just want the baby to be healthy." She smiled, "Though I suppose a boy would be nice. He could grow up to be strong like his father." The baby came in late September, on a crisp fall morning with golden light streaming through the windows. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Lydia understood Victor's fear. Pain racked her body, and exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. But Victor was there, holding her hand, speaking words of encouragement, his presence giving her strength. "You can do this," he told her, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "You are the strongest person I know. Just a little more, Lydia. Our baby is almost here." And finally, with one last tremendous effort, their son entered the world. He was red-faced and screaming, perfect in every way. The doctor cleaned him and handed him to Lydia, and she felt her heart expand with love so intense it was almost painful. "A boy," the doctor said with a smile, "healthy and strong, just like his father." Victor stared at his son with wonder, tears streaming down his face. He reached out with a trembling hand to touch the baby's tiny fist. "He is real. We have a son." "What should we name him?" Lydia asked, exhausted but happy. Victor thought for a moment. "Samuel, after my father, Samuel Victor Kane." "Samuel," Lydia smiled. "I love it. Hello, Samuel. Welcome to the world." The next weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and constant feedings. Samuel was a demanding baby, crying frequently and requiring constant attention. But Lydia and Victor faced the challenges together, taking turns walking the floor with their son, learning his needs and rhythms. "I never knew it was possible to love someone this much," Victor said one night as he rocked Samuel in the chair he had made. "I look at him and I cannot breathe from how much I love him." "I know exactly what you mean." Lydia watched her husband with their son and felt her own love deepen. "You are a wonderful father, Victor." "I am trying." He looked up at her with vulnerable eyes. "I'm so afraid of failing him, of losing you." "You will not fail him, and you will not lose either of us." She moved to sit beside him. "We are a family, Victor, a real family, and we are going to be fine." And they were. As the months passed, Samuel grew strong and healthy. He had Victor's gray eyes and Lydia's blonde hair, and he smiled early and often. Watching him develop, seeing the world through his wondering eyes, brought Lydia joy she had never imagined possible. On Samuel's first birthday, they had a small celebration with friends from town. As Lydia watched her son try to eat cake with his tiny hands, while Victor laughed and cleaned up the mess, She felt overwhelming gratitude for the life they had built. "What are you thinking?" Martha asked, appearing at her elbow. "That I'm happy. Truly, deeply happy." Lydia turned to her friend. "I never thought I would feel this way. After Robert, I was so broken. I truly believed love was just a fairy tale. But Victor proved you wrong." "He did. He was patient when I needed patience, strong when I needed strength. He never gave up on me, even when I had given up on myself." She watched her husband lift their son high in the air, Samuel squealing with delight. "He made me believe in love again." "That is a precious gift." Martha squeezed her hand. "You deserve this happiness, Lydia. Both of you do." The years passed in a blur of joy and hard work. Samuel grew into a bright, active boy who loved exploring the mountains with his father. Lydia's sewing business thrived, and she trained several young women in the trade, enjoying the teaching. Victor became a respected member of the community, known for his skill and integrity. They had 2 more children, a daughter they named Catherine after Victor's first wife, and another son they named Lucas. The house expanded with additions to accommodate their growing family. And through it all, Lydia and Victor's love deepened and matured, becoming something solid and unshakable. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Victor took Lydia back to the meadow where she had first admitted she was falling in love with him. The wildflowers were in full bloom, just as they had been that first time. Their children played nearby, watched over by Martha, who had become like family to them. 10 years, Victor said, pulling Lydia close. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like forever." The best kind of forever. She leaned against him, feeling the same safety and love she had felt since the beginning. "Thank you for not giving up on me all those years ago, for seeing something in me worth fighting for. Thank you for taking the risk." He kissed the top of her head, "for choosing to believe in love again even though you were terrified." "It was the best decision I ever made." She turned to look up at him. "I love you, Victor Kane, more every day." "I love you too, Lydia Kane. Always have, always will." They stood together in the meadow, surrounded by beauty and the sound of their children's laughter, and Lydia felt complete. She had been so certain that love was just a lie, that happiness was impossible. But Victor had proven her wrong. He had shown her that real love existed, that it was worth the risk, worth the vulnerability. She had given up on love completely, but a mountain man with storm-gray eyes and a patient heart had made her believe in it once more, and that belief had transformed her entire life. As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Lydia watched her family and felt nothing but gratitude for the pain that had brought her to Victor, for his persistence and honesty, for the children they had created together, for the life they had built from 2 broken people who dared to try again. This was not the life she had imagined when she stood in that telegraph office so many years ago, learning her husband was dead. This was so much better. This was real love, real happiness, the kind that came from 2 people choosing each other every single day. "What are you thinking?" Victor asked, echoing the question he had asked so many times over the years. "That I am exactly where I am supposed to be." She smiled up at him. "Home." "Home," he agreed, and kissed her as the sun disappeared behind the peaks, and their children ran through the flowers, and the future stretched out before them, bright with promise and hope and love that would last forever. The mountain wind whispered through the meadow, carrying with it the scent of wildflowers and pine. And Lydia Brooks Kane, who had once believed love was impossible, knew with absolute certainty that she had found something rare and precious. She had found a man who loved her not despite her brokenness, but alongside it. A man who had been just as damaged, just as lost, and who had found healing in their connection. Together, they had built something beautiful from their pain, a family, a home, a love that would endure through all the seasons of their lives. And as they walked hand in hand back to their children, back to the life they had created, Lydia sent up a silent prayer of thanks for the mountain man who had taught her that sometimes giving up on love and finding it again was all part of the same journey, the one that led you home.